Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to our leadership class. And we'll be going to start chapter 4. Can everybody hear my voice? Uh, just checking that everybody can hear me. Okay, very good. So this chapter we'll be talking about participative leadership, delegation, and empowerment. So this is the type of leadership that is mostly the preferred type of leadership, and nowadays it is the most common and the most advised type of leadership. So let's go ahead and start the chapter. So our learning objectives are understanding what research methods have been used to study participative leadership, understand the major findings in research on consequences of participative leadership, understand the situations in which participative leadership is most likely to be effective, understand the major findings in research on normative theory of leader decision making, understanding procedures for the effective use of consultation, understand the potential benefits and risks of delegation, understanding when and how to use delegation effectively, and finally understand why follower perceptions of empowerment are important. Okay. So varieties of participation. When we talk about participative leadership, it's important to understand what are the varieties of participation. So we have autocratic decision, consultation, joint decision, and delegation. So it's it looks like in a spectrum. If you look at the figure 1, you see at autocratic decision, basically there is no influence by others. It's just you as a leader. You are just deciding whatever you want, and nobody else is gonna influence and affect your decision making. So you whatever decide is gonna be the final decision without consulting or asking anybody. So as long as we move towards the right-hand side, the level of decision-making just being on your shoulder as a leader will be reduced and others will be involved. So at consultation, you see that the influence by others will increase. So as we move along, the joint decision, there will be more of influence by others. And finally, delegation, there is a high influence levels by others. So as you can see, the participative leadership, the part that others are participating in decision making, is at the very right hand side. There is delegation, means others are really influencing and taking part in making the decision. You're not the only one who is making the decision. So consequences of participative leadership. We have the decision procedures when autocratic decision, consultation, or joint decision or delegation has different procedures. Then we have explanatory processes, which is understanding the problem, basically integrative problem solving, identification with solution, and procedural justice. So the decision procedures is just that shows the type of decision making. So autocratic or consultation or joint or delegation. But the process, the explanatory process, you can see that for autocratic, you can just look at the front, you see understanding the problem. So you as the leader for autocratic decision making, you will be the only one who tries to understand the problem. But consultation, you try to integratively solve the problem. Means you try to consult, you try to give consultation to others. It's more of a two-way relationship rather than just one way at the autocratic decision making. And join is you try to identify and find the solution with the help of the others. And then finally, the delegation is a procedural justice. The procedural justice is when you basically try to follow a procedure. The procedure is delegating, to give assignments, and people with different levels of involvement, they try to find the solution together. That's why we call it procedural justice. It means that everyone has a role in that solution finding process. So we have potential benefits. At the potential benefits, you see that understanding the problem at the autocratic decision, you have a high decision quality. At the integrative, when there's consultation, you have high decision acceptance. So people or your staff are, accepting what you're telling them. So they are able to accept because they understand it. And finally, at the next level, which you identify the solution, they are satisfied because they are the decision is made together. So at the final, which is the delegation, which is the best type of participative leadership, you see the more skill development, because at the delegative, you are doing everything like a team. You work together. So that's why you develop more skills together. So that's why you understand what you need to do, and everybody works together and helps each other. So the situational variables, as you can see here, the importance of decision, the distribution of knowledge, goal, congruence, and time pressure, and member traits and values. So all these are really affecting the process. So when you look at the part which says explanatory process, there are these variables. Congruence means matching together. And there is a compliance. So as you can see here, the importance of decision, the decision that you make, has a very indirect relationship on the process of finding the solution. So when you're trying to find the solution to a problem, you are basically distributing the knowledge. So there is a goal. The goal is finding the solution, and in order to find a solution, you need to find some matching or some compliance with the goal. Your problem solving should be in line with your goal that you have set at the beginning. And of course, you always have time pressure. So the higher the time pressure, the more would be the pressure of time, because you're limited with time, and your solution should be found much sooner than it would be when you have enough time. And then finally, the member traits and values. The values of the members. What is valuable? What is important to the members? what the corporate culture says that your values are is really important when it comes to making the decision. So as you can see here, the consequences of participative leadership is that there are potential benefits of participation. When everybody participates, when you have participative leadership, you have higher quality for your decision. You have acceptance of your decision. You have satisfaction with the decision process, and you develop the skills. Can everybody hear me? Okay, very good. Yeah, those of you who say no voice, let me just type, because some of you say no voice. Let me just type those speakers. Okay, so getting back to the consequences of participative leadership, so there are benefits. The benefits that you see, actually the quality of the decision, the acceptance, and the satisfaction with the process of developing these skills are actually the benefits that you get using any of those types of participative leadership. So here we see the research on effects of participative leadership. Basically, there has been a lot of research done on different type of leadership. Also, the one that you see on 1973 is a type of research that basically led into exploring the definition of participative leadership, because a lot of times the definition of participative leadership was not clear enough. A lot of people would think that as long as everybody's participating, everybody's part of the decision making, you could call it a participative leadership. So this research by Bragg and Andrews was done and conducted in order to understand what are actually the parts that are involved when you're calling your leadership a participative. So there are effects of participation when you make other team members, when you have your staff participate in leadership, and you have and ask everyone to participate. There are effects. The effect is the involvement, and basically everybody develops the skills and understands how the decision is made. So it's more of a clear and more involving type of leadership. So the limitations, of course, there are always limitations to whatever research that whoever does, and those limitations were that the groups are limited. They might not be representing the whole concept of participative leadership. There are the industries, from industry to industry, it might change. And then combining interventions, I will get to that in a second. First, like these are the limitations that was that were found out during the research. Measurement problems with survey field research. So field research, we are talking about just whatever research based on the industry and type of the company. So as I said, the research was done on different companies, and each company is, of course, in a different industry. So it's difficult to generalize what you find out in one industry to just a general, overall industry-wide kind of finding. So sometimes it's just limited to that type of company or just that certain company you found out it, so you cannot just expand it. So that's one of the limitations. Combining interventions means that a lot of times when you do research, research on participative leadership, there are interventions, there are intervals, there are spaces in between that you cannot just combine them together and get to a general conclusion. So combining those interventions, those differences might lead into an error in your research result. Then we have short-term programs. So when you focus on short-term programs, particularly when it comes to research, you're not able to come up with a clear picture, because a lot of times when it comes to leadership, you're looking at the long run. You're looking into the long-term relationship that the leader has with the staff. So, but for the purpose of research, mostly they put a short period of time, let's say a month or a week, and then try to find out about it. So there would be a limitation because this is a short-term program and not necessarily a real long-term relationship. So what you find is more of a sample which is just focused on that short term, and in the long term your result might be totally different. And the difficulty comparing results across the studies. So then it goes back to the first problem, that when you find a result in one study, it's difficult to apply it to the other. There are differences between the studies, and comparing them together are not always something possible. Okay? So any questions so far? Okay. So normative decision model. These two guys, Room and Yen, are those who came up with the model. So decision procedures. Like the leader makes decision without any additional information. So at this part, we call it AI. The leader is the one who makes the decision without giving any information to anybody else. So that's the autocratic, where the influence of others on the decision to be made is much lower than the other types. It's just the leader makes the decision. It's like a traditional type that you make the decision. When you're the leader, you make the decision, and you don't involve or ask others about it. It's just your call. Whatever you decide is going to be done. So it's traditional. It's not necessarily the best type because there is not much participation. So the type 2 is the leader seeks information and makes decision. This is the consultation part. So you as the leader are still the one who makes the decision just alone, but at this time you try to get some information from others. So that's the part of the consultation, is because you involve others to ask information and get the data and updates, but you only make the decision. Then the C is where you have some participation, where the leader shares problem with others individually and makes decision alone again. So you individually talk to people and share the problem with them, but you at the end of the day will make the decision. Then we have the C2, which is the leader shares problem with others collectively and makes decision alone. So collectively means that in groups you try to solve the problem, but you make the decision. And finally, the group discusses problem collectively and group makes the decision. So this is the final most. These are basically the way they try to put it in grids. So that's why they call it A, C, G. They don't necessarily mean anything. It's just alphabetically ordered, trying to separate them. Yeah, it's not necessarily, you know, standing for anything, but the only thing is G is for the group discusses, and C is for the collectively. That's why we call it C. And then, but the collectivity of the C1 and C2 is that you discuss with just individuals, but at the C2 there are like groups discussions. And for A, you see A stands for additional information. So the A, you see that you make the decision without anything, but A2, you try to find information from others. Yeah, it's not necessarily, but as you mentioned, like A1 happens to be autocratic also, and but A2 is consultation, and then the C1 and C2 are we are having more of a delegative part. So not necessarily, because G is a delegative part with you know is not it would be D instead of G. So it's just different namings. But it's important to understand the concept that at A1 and A2, you are the only one who makes the decision. At C, there is more of consultation, and at G, you see the delegation. Yes, that's true. So yes, those two guys are two people. They did the research, and this is their model. That is true. Okay. So as you can see here, you have the decision procedure, you have the decision quality, and then the team performance. So basically this chapter, we are trying to review the research that was done by these two academics, that they try to understand the leadership, the different parts of leadership, different types of leadership, and what they entail. So the decision procedure is discussing how the decision is made, the procedures involved in order to make the decision. Then we have situational variables. So there are variables that are basically influencing the relationship between the procedure that the decision is made and the decision quality and acceptance. So the decision quality and acceptance, you will have more of acceptance when you involve others. And decision quality, of course, is just when you decide on your own, the decision quality will be determined by the type of information you get. So at the A1, if you recall from the previous slide, the information you get nothing. It's just your decision without any information. So probably the quality of your decision is not as high as when you get the real information from others. So you're basing your decision on some tangible facts and some involvement from your team members. And then finally, you have the team performance, which is the delegative part. So basically, we call it unit or team performance, because unit is you just make the decision and you know, the whole unit will follow you. But when you do the team performance, it's more of a delegation part where everybody is part of the decision making. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? Can everybody hear me loud and clear? Okay, I try to speak louder. Okay? Very good. So, continuation of the research. We have situational variables. We're trying to understand the situational variables. The amount of relevant information possessed by the leader and subordinates. So the influence of the information that you have as a leader, the amount of those information is really important. If you have less information, your decision would be less accurate and you know, less probably correct. The likelihood that subordinates will accept an autocratic decision. So this is also very important. When you have autocratic system where you as the leader are the only one who makes the decision and you don't necessarily get information from your team members, the problem you face is that the likelihood that your subordinates, that your staff, your team members will accept that is less. I mean, they probably just do whatever you tell them because you are the leader and you tell them what to do. But it doesn't mean that they accept it in their heart or they believe in it. So that's the problem all the autocratic leadership types face, because they are lacking that confidence or acceptance from their staff. Everybody's following that decision for sure, but what is the problem is that people don't necessarily think it's a correct decision, and it will be less involvement and less quality when you don't accept or you don't believe in a decision. When you're just doing something because it's part of your job and you're told to, is very different than the time that you really believe in that decision and you try to get it done no matter what. So your involvement and your commitment is way more. Then the likelihood that the subordinates will cooperate. So then again, going back to the spectrum of autocratic all the way to the delegative, you see that the cooperation, as I just mentioned, is way more. So people will work together, they try to cooperate, they try to help and fix the problem together. And the amount of disagreement among subordinates with respect to preferred alternatives. So there will be a higher level of disagreements when there's autocratic, because people didn't get a chance to get more information, didn't get a chance to discuss together, to come to a conclusion. So there will be a lot missing in that type of leadership. But it's true that when it's autocratic decision making, when you make the decision, it's faster. You come to a decision faster, but it doesn't mean fast. And faster is better. Faster might not be better decision making. So because you are not getting real information from your team members. So this is a very important part. And then the extent to which the decision is unstructured and requires creative problem solving. So when the number 2 and 3, they definitely want to participate, Mr. Faisal. Basically, it's generally true that when you're dealing with your staff, when you're a leader, you might be tempted not to use the delegative type because it takes more time to get to a conclusion and decision. It's difficult to involve everyone and have everyone participate. But it's really true, when people are not involved, when your staff are not involved, the level of acceptance is less. So they might not necessarily tell you what they prefer, but the research shows the staff really prefer to be part of the decision making, and that's why they perform better, as the research suggests. So when you have everyone participate, you have everyone commit herself or himself to that project at hand. Everybody's part of doing it together. Then we are going to go back to the next point, which is the amount of the disagreement among subordinates with respect to preferred alternatives. So at the very first type, where there's autocratic, where you are the only decision maker, there is no chance for your team members, for your staff, to agree upon the decision. There might be a lot of differences in opinions in who is right, who is wrong, who has the most correct version of it. And so there will be a lot of discussions missing, that people will not be convinced that the decision that was made was really to the best possible considerations. So it's always important to involve others. Then finally, it's unstructured and it requires creative problem solving. So when you are making a decision, you need to keep in mind as a leader that most of the times the problem that you want to solve is not structured. It's not ordered, that you just know the order so it's easier for you to solve the problem. The problem just pops up and you have to immediately make the decision in that time. But what helps in the delegative type is that you as a team work together. You come with creative solutions to solve the problem. That's why you're much stronger. The quality of decision is much higher. People will accept it better because they did the discussions together. They solved the problem together. That's why you understand it better. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay. So, since everybody's following, Item 5. Yeah, item 5. Let's say your company, you're the leader, and your company suddenly has a drop in the sales volume, and you want to know why, and you're puzzled and you're struggling. So when you, as a leader, just make the decision yourself, you might just cancel one sales campaign that you had because you think it's not worthwhile because you are dropping in sales, and you just do that, and it might or might not help the result. But basically, when you're working together as a team and you're getting information from your staff, you assign people to find out, first of all, what is the influence of this campaign that you have. Did it have? I mean, uh, did it have any result at all? Or if it did, on what areas, what type of clients? And then you try to structure the problem, just order the problem, so that you understand it better. The decision is unstructured. We mean by decision is unstructured means that you just make the decision out of the blue, without any pattern, without any ordering the problems, and then coming to a solution. You just make the decision. That's like autocratic. But it will be structured when you involve your team members. They come up with creative solutions. They put it together, and everybody together will come up with a solution, one final solution for everyone. So that's why it's more structured in that way. Yeah, it's haphazard. That's true. It's just Uh, okay. Uh, can everyone hear me? Oh yes. For some reason, I was kicked out of the session. Sorry about that. I had to log back in. So okay. So let's continue. Yes. So it's unstructured, as I said. Uh, because it's just not your I mean, it's just your decision when it's you're doing it as autocratic decision making, but it will be more structured when you involve others because you have a chance to structure the problem, find a solution as like steps. So it's much better that way. So and then we have the continuation, the concept of decision acceptance. So the degree of your commitment to implement a decision effectively will give you a higher level of acceptance. It's actually always the case. When you involve people, they will accept the decision, the final decision better because they have been part of it. It's like everybody together has made the decision rather than just you making the decision that people just have to do it, then their level of acceptance would be lower rather than when you make the decision based on the commitment of people. When people are part of that decision and they think that they made the decision with you together, that's why they accept it better. So then the quality of decision, objective aspects of decision that affects group performance aside from any effects mediated by decision acceptance. So the quality of decision also is going to change when you involve others or you just make the decision without you knowing others level of commitment. The degree of commitment means level of commitment, means level of being part of the team and making the decision together. So these will all affect the decision you make and the level and the quality of the decision. Okay. So the decision rules in this model is that, number one, when the decision is important and subordinates possess relevant information that is lacked by the leader, an autocratic decision, the AI or AII, is not appropriate because an important decision would be made without all of the relevant available information. So this table is trying to explain the shortcomings of each of shortcomings or benefits of each of those that we discussed. So at number one, we know that when you're making an important decision, it's really important to get others facts. You know, as a leader, if you're just making the decision, if you remember AI and AII, you didn't get that much relevant information from your staff. You were the only one who was making the decision. So, but when the decision quality is important and subordinates do not share the leader's concern for the task goals, a group decision is not appropriate because these procedures would give too much influence over an important decision to uncooperative or even hostile people. So this is when the AI or AII would be a good idea. So this is because it's really important to understand also that those different types of delegation, like autocratic decision or participative consulting, or delegative, can change. It doesn't mean that when you do an autocratic decision making, you should always do the same. You can always change. It's like, as I said, it's like a spectrum. So you change according to the context. So in this example number 2, you find out and you see that when people do not share the same concerns, you might better off doing the autocratic decision making rather than participative, because people don't have the information. Means that you as a leader might have the information in that context. So please understand that it's not just a general. You cannot just generally say I'm an autocratic leader or I am a basically a consultation leader. It all depends on the context. You might decide to be an autocratic leader in one context, and in another you might decide to be more of a delegated one. So that's why it's explaining it here. Then number 3, we see that when decision quality is important, decision problem is unstructured, and the leader does not possess the necessary information expertise to make a good decision, then the decision should be made by interaction among the people with the relevant information. Exactly, Mr. Nawawi. That's exactly what it means. It means that you go by the context. So we are trying to understand each of them so we can apply according to the context that we are in. So as you see in number 3, when the decision is important, but at the same time the information people possess is generally useful and important, you try to involve them in the decision making. Number 4, when decision acceptance is important and subordinates are unlikely to accept autocratic decision, the autocratic decision is not appropriate. So there are times that the acceptance of your decision would be very lower when it comes to when it comes to acceptance. You really want to make sure that your staff will accept your decision. So if you find out that by doing an autocratic decision you will lose their acceptance, you're not going to do it if the decision is important. So the level of importance of the decision is also very crucial in figuring out what type of leadership you got to use. So number 5 is when decision acceptance is important and subordinates are likely to disagree among themselves about the best solution to an important problem. Autocratic procedures and individual consultation are not appropriate because they do not provide the opportunity to resolve the differences through discussion and negotiation among subordinates and between the subordinates and the leader. So when you realize that the importance of the decision and but also the subordinates, the disagreement is going to be a lot, it's always a better idea to have a group decision, to have a collective group decision, a delegated one, because you know these arguments are going to trouble you. It's going to stop you. So it's you better just start from scratch with everybody is involved or part of the decision-making process, and everybody together will come up with the decision, because individually or like just a leader by himself or herself is not going to help you at all. So it's always a great idea to get others involved and try to have them comment and discuss and argue why they think like that. Then number 6 is when the decision quality is not important, but the acceptance is important and unlikely to result from an autocratic decision, then the only appropriate procedure is basically through GII, which is more of a delegated part, because you cannot just risk the quality of the decision. And finally, when the decision acceptance is important but not likely to result from an alphocratic decision, subordinates share the leader's task objectives. Subordinates should be given an equal partnership in decision process. So as you can see, as we move along down from numbers, we get more to a delegative type. So it's really important, as you can see, it's really important for the leader to understand the context, understand the importance and the quality of the decision that is required, and based on that, you can come up with some idea and find out what is the best for you. Okay. So this is Room and Yago, another model which incorporates the additional aspects of the situation, which is severe time constraints, amount of subordinate information, and geographical dispersions of subordinates. So these are also important when it comes to choosing what type of leadership you want to use. When you have a very severe and bad time constraint, meaning that you need to come up to a decision as soon as possible, rather than having time and discuss with everyone and consult and come up with a decision finally, you have to decide as soon as possible. So then it's more of autocratic. When the amount of subordinates information is not enough, so you would like to involve others in basically making the decision, but you find out that their information is not good enough. They don't know what you want them to know. So that's another concern. And then geographical dispersion of the subordinates. Sometimes you want to consult with others, but they're not around. They might be in another continent or another country or another city. So it's difficult for you to communicate. Of course, nowadays with all these technological advancements like video conferences and everything, it's much easier for you to consult with your subordinates. But a lot of times the paperwork does not allow as much as we want to be able to, incorporate that. So then again, the additional outcome criteria is when you want to develop your staff. You want to teach them like skills, have them understand why the decision is made. That is when you have them sign. So this is also important. And finally, the concern for decision time. What sort of time and bracketed time you're going to make the decision? So this is actually related to the severe time constraints, but on this is generally just time. So it's time sensitive. The decision you make is time sensitive. Managers given more choices in setting priorities for the criteria in the model and allow the managers to differentiate among 5 decisions in decision-making process or situation. So managers are really important when it comes to decision-making. They might not be the leaders, but they are important in being able to describe the situation to the staff. Okay? So as you can see here, it basically explains what type of leadership is useful according to the type of decision quality. When the decision is not important, you can use autocratic. When it's important but the leader has sufficient information, it's still autocratic. And then it shows you when it's good to have other types, especially when it comes to acceptance of the subordinates. So as you move down, you see that like when it's important that the leader lacks information and the information is with the employees, it's always good to do consultation. Okay. Any questions so far? It's pretty straightforward. This chart is just a summary of what you were discussing in the past few slides. But any questions so far? Dispersions means expansions, means dispersing, means contributing, means giving out. Okay, yes. So any questions so far? Any comments or questions? Yes, it's just, I would say, Mr. Miyako, let's just take those numbers, A's, and all that for groupings, like just numbering them. Please focus on the content and the meaning of each grid. That way, we will not be confused. If you want to, do that and say A is for autocratic and all that, it's fine. But please make sure that you understand the concept, because it's really not important those names like A1 or A11. It's more of understanding what it means and what we mean by each of those subcategories. Okay, so let's move on to, before we move on to the next slide, so I just want to give you a task. Let me just ask you a question. I want you to give me some response in that regard. Please look at this chart. Look at this chart and find out about the question I'm going to ask you. Yes, I'm just writing it down. Uh, so your task is to give an example of when autocratic decision is better according to your experience, and an example of when it's impossible to do autocratic. Okay, so I want your example. So please make sure you give me an example from your experience, from your work. Like, tell me when you were trying to make a decision with like some details and it didn't work, or it worked, and why it worked when you did it autocratic, or why it wouldn't work if it was it was a delegative or consultation type of solution. So can everybody hear me? Are you following on the task? Are there any questions? Okay, please take a few minutes, and I want, as I said, a real example from your work. I want something that we can discuss, not just a theoretical answer. I want you to give me your experience. Share your experience with your friends and tell us why, let's say, autocratic decision-making helped you, or why it didn't and why. So just, I need an example, okay? Okay, so just take a few minutes and we get back to you. Okay, let's get back and discuss your answers. We have from Mr. Nasir Ahmad, the autocratic is good in the conditions where there is limitations on time, like urgent cases, when as well as military people. So yeah, I appreciate if you will give me your experience, your example, rather than a general answer, as I mentioned. Then from Mr. Ghaffari, any type of leadership is fitting to its own situation, yes. As example, when time is too restricted, the group members have lots of ideas, so autocratic is better. Normally, autocratic decisions is not working well, that's true. If there is more concern about the quality of decision and available more time, that the group decision is good. And so I can decide the graph. Another example, we wanted to prepare a concept notes for our projects, and I had most of the information. It, yes. So as you can see, and as I can see from your examples and your answers, it's really helpful when you have a time constraint to do the autocratic style, because you don't have much time to spend and you are basically pressured with time. So that's one of the issues. And when you have so many choices, or you cannot make a decision, if you want to just rely on others, you have to do it yourself, then maybe you can consider autocratic. Friends and the family. Okay, very good. So let's just go to the next slide. So some support, but more research needed, extended model needed to be tested. So just talking about this research, it's a good research, but still we need to do more research to make sure it's the viable finding, and then conceptual weakness. The decision processes are treated as a single uh, distance episode. So it's it's talking about the shortcomings of this model. So when we are talking about the decision processes, we are just considering them and taking them as just a single instance rather than a process like as a whole from A to Z. We are just focusing on one single decision process. Then the model is too complicated. Then the leaders are assumed to have necessary skills to use the various decision procedures. So the model is sometimes too complicated, that might be confusing, and also the leaders are assumed to have necessary skills. So when it comes to autocratic decisions. So these are some of the shortcomings that we want to just mention here. Okay. So these are about the shortcomings. So the guidelines. So how to make sure your participative leadership is more successful. You need to evaluate how important the decision is. This is really the first step. So for you to make sure you use the right style for your leadership, it's always helpful to find out about the importance of the decision. Then identify the people with relevant knowledge. Who has the knowledge? We talked about this. We talked about this, that it's always important to get the knowledge if your employee has the information. If you don't really have the information, you better just make sure you don't use the autocratic decision making because you don't have it. You definitely need to gather the information that is needed. So it really helps. Then identify people with, we covered that. Evaluate likely cooperation by others. Find out how much cooperation you can get. Find out whether you really are able to get the cooperation. And mostly you can. It's just have a good understanding of the situation. Evaluate the likely acceptance without participation. Find out if your team will accept the decision if they're not part of the decision making. Because a lot of companies, a lot of places have changed from the way they were, and you cannot do that anymore. But you might be able to. And then finally, evaluate whether it is feasible to hold a meeting. So the meetings are also important. When you hold meetings, you invite everyone, everybody comments. When you express a decision, you'll see whether people accept it or not, whether they want to talk about it or not. So it's really, really important and helpful. Okay. So I was just trying to give you an example. Basically, a good example of autocratic decision is when you are the leader with all the information, the time is limited. A good example is for those projects that are really time constrained, and you have to come up with a decision as soon as possible, and you are the one who has the information. But on the other side of the delegated part is when you are facing the problem on a day-by-day, yes, crash projects. But when you're facing the problem on a day-by-day basis and you really want to make sure that you involve everyone in the process of
solving the problem. So then it's really helpful to involve others. So continuing on guidelines. So encourage participation. Encourage people to express their concerns. Generally speaking, as a leader, you should definitely always encourage people to express their opinions. You should describe a proposal as a tentative. You should record ideas and suggestions. Keep those ideas and suggestions. Don't just hear them and then let them go. Mostly the creations and innovations start from here. So make sure you record them. Look for ways to build on ideas and suggestions. Try to build on those ideas. Try to really develop those ideas. Try to encourage them. Look for ways to build ideas and suggestions. Be tactful in expressing concerns about a suggestion. Listen to dissenting views without getting defensive. Don't get defensive. Yeah, describe a proposal as tentative, meaning that when you hear a proposal, make sure you help your staff understand that it's just a proposal. It's not going to be final. It's important for you to help people understand when people come up with ideas or suggestions. It doesn't mean that you necessarily are going to go by that. It's just a proposal, and you'll test it and make sure it's correct. Then be tactful in expressing concerns about a suggestion. Be tactful, be upfront. Don't panic or don't fear of expressing yourself. Listen to dissenting views. Don't get defensive. Don't try to defend yourself. Be open to critical views. And then try to utilize suggestions and deal with concerns. Show appropriate appreciation for suggestions. Okay. Any questions so far? Any comments or questions? Yeah, dissenting means disagreeing, means those that are against you, those comments that are against your leadership, they are like critical of you. Be open to them, listen to them, try to find out what are the points, and yes, opposing, in opposition to what you say. So don't be just defending yourself. Be open to them and let people express themselves. So when it comes to delegation, there are varieties of delegation. And some of the advantages of delegation is you improve the quality of the decision. When you are open and you delegate people, you improve the quality. Then you have greater subordinate commitments. We talked about it. So your subordinates will be able to commit themselves more, and then making subordinates' jobs more interesting. It will be more interesting for them. They think they matter. They think their decision matters. They don't think they just wear or do whatever they have or they are told to. Rather than they think that you will decide together. So because they're part of the decision-making team, they'll commit themselves. Then improve time management. So when you have delegation, you can manage your time more. It's true that when it's you're constrained at the time, you go by autocratic, but at the same time, when you have other people working together, you actually can gain time. So it's really important to understand that also. And then it's important for formal management development. So please take that as a serious type of management, the delegation part. Okay? Okay. Any questions so far? Yes, it's always good to share power because that way you will involve others as well. Any questions or comments? Any questions? Any comments? Okay, let's just go to the next slide. So potential advantages of delegation, as you can see, this is the actual research. So percentage of managers who rated a reason for delegation as morally very important. So most of managers said that to develop a subordinate skill and confidence, enable subordinates to deal with problems, improve decisions by moving them close to the action, increase subordinate commitment, and make the job more interesting and produce your workload to manage according to time, satisfy superiors who want you to delegate more, and get rid of the tedious tasks you don't want to. So as you can see here, these are all, it's like in a descending order. So the highest or the most important is just to develop a subordinate skill. So developing your people. Tedious means it takes a lot of work. It's tiring. So as you can see, it's really important when it comes to developing the skills in your staff, and you're helping them to build the skills and be the future leaders. So, and that's mostly our job and our target, to help people to be the future leaders. So these are all the topics that you want to consider. So then we go to the next slide here. So aspects of the leader personality is also important. The fear of subordinates making a mistake. When you involve your subordinates, sometimes you're fearful of them making a mistake. That's why you don't want to give them a chance. And high need for personal achievement. Sometimes you as a leader want to take the credit all yourself. That's why you don't let people to take part. Or characteristics of subordinates or nature of work. So these are all the reasons that you might not go for delegation. So high need for personal achievement means that you have as a leader, you want to personally achieve that result, so you don't share the credit. So you really want to make sure the reason that you're using autocratic or delegation is something for the good of the company, not just something personal. So this is also very important, as you can see in this slide. It's really important to make sure that you know, the type of work that you're doing is really relevant to what you want it to do. Okay? Very good. That's true. When you yourself want to, so please make sure when you are choosing the type of leadership, you are doing it because of the benefit of everyone and the company, not just yourself. So this is the rule number one, that if you don't take it personal, characteristics of subordinates. Subordinates means your staff. So characteristics means their personality or the type of people they are. So according to your staff, you might also decide if you have a staff who are responsible, then you might be able to use the delegative rather than autocratic. So all depends on the context, as we discussed. So a lot of times it's worthwhile to focus on, delegative and try to develop your staff, and it all depends on the context, as we discussed. So any questions so far? Any comments before we finish this session? Yes, but keep in mind, when you're not optimistic about their behavior, you got to develop good behavior in them. So that's your responsibility. Yes, decentralization and centralization will cover it, but the nature of work and the good part when you delegate is actually is that you decentralize. I mean, centralization and decentralization is just another term or another way of putting it, that when you, as the only leader, are going to make the decision, you are the center. But when you delegate, it's actually decentralization. And nature of work is also important, as you mentioned. That's true. If the staff is not willing to receive work, sometimes you got to consider maybe you have the wrong staff. So that is also important. So you cannot just go based on the fact that your staff are not receiving it. You got to delegate it. You got to expect work from them, and they have to perform. I mean, you are the one as a leader who develops the staff, who helps staff to learn and be equipped with what they need to in order to make the decision. So you are the one who makes the change. Yes, you can. You can make the change possible. Okay. So any other comments or questions? Intentionally do not receive. Yes, the staff are good, and for them to receive the delegation, a lot of times it's your responsibility. You got to create an atmosphere that everybody is going to take the delegation as part of their job. So if they're good, they will, and you as a leader are managing and facilitating good, it's not going to be any problem there. Okay. Okay. So any questions before we end the session? Thanks. When you're the leader, it's always, I mean, a lot of times leader takes the credit and the leader takes the blame also. That's true. But you need to understand that as a leader, you are going to make the change. So you are the one who makes the change, creates the change. So don't just think about being a leader as you gotta, just benefit from the situation. Sometimes you have to take the blame. Yes, it's difficult, but what is important is that you are making the change, and you're the one who makes the change possible. Okay. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, thanks. Yeah, of course, it's not easy. It's not easy to, make the change. But as a leader, you have to find strategies and ways to do that. The best way is always to involve others and make sure that they feel that they are part of the team who is making the decision. And Mr. Miracle, thank you so very much. Thank you. Oh yes, I will send you the presentation today, and yeah, thank you so much for the congratulations and the greetings. So I think that's the end of the session today. I'll see you all next week, and I'll send you the slides today. Sure, I will. The book is the one that we have already shared with you, the title. So, Leadership in Organizations is the book. Thank you so much. Sure, I will send you whatever I have sent you from now, plus the next chapter for the next session. I'll send it today. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great week. You should the book you gotta buy from the bookstore. I don't have the soft copy, and I can't send you any book, unfortunately. You can talk to the admin and have them buy for you and send it for you or stuff like that, but I don't have a soft copy of the book. Yeah, it's pretty expensive, but it's a great book, and you'll benefit from it. No school ever buys the book for the students. Like when you go to the schools and universities anywhere in the world, you buy your own book. So I don't think that they should provide it, but you can pay for it and they can buy it for you if you want. So I have been to many schools and none of them. No, it's not the case. Like these type of books, this is an American book. It's they're not cheap. So I don't think so. You can talk to the admin about it. Yes, I'll send you all the presentations for sure. I think I've sent you so far all of them, and I'll send you today's presentation and the next week's presentation. Thank you so much. Have a great one, and talk to you later.